Hi guys, this is Ori, and today we have a little quick lesson on encapsulation. And this is just a branch of object-oriented programming that we're going to take a look at today. So what is object-oriented programming? In simple terms, object-oriented programming is being able to create instances of objects and whatnot. And today we're going to take a look at that. Object-oriented programming is really broken down into three subcategories called encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. And today we will be taking a look at more closely at encapsulation. So before we get ahead to encapsulation, there's something called a class. Most of you have heard of it already in one way or another, whether hearing the name out there or not. A class is basically an object, so think of it like a car in a racing game. It's an object and consists of attributes, constructors, accessor modifiers, and behaviors. And if all those words seem very mumbled up to you and you don't really understand them, that's fine, because we'll take a look at them throughout this short video. So if you imagine it like a bank. A bank is your object, right? You go into the bank, you get your money, the bank gives you your money. It's an object. There are many banks out there, you can go to different types of banks, right? And different types of banks have different, they work a bit differently. They have different rates and whatnot. All right, so a class consists of all those things I said before: attributes, constructor, accessor, modifier, and behaviors. And we're going to be taking a look at them. First of all, being attributes. So an attribute is basically a property. It's anything stored by the class, data-wise, any variables, whatnot. So if you take a look at what I told you before, if you took a look at the car, a speed or a distance traveled of the car. If you took a look at Mario, it would be like the bricks in Mario. Right? They give you that mystery update. Or in that bank, it would be the money or the mortgage rates that they have or whatnot. Then we have here our constructor, and basically what the constructor is just it's similar to a subprogram. All it does is it helps set up the attributes. So when you create an instance of that object, specifically when you create like what an instance of an object means is when you create like a copy of an object, like when you create an object, okay, you need to give it values. You need to give it to start it off. So it needs to know its original speed. It needs to know its max speed. The bank needs to know how much money they're set up with, their mortgage rate, whatnot, right? So you set in those parameters and you create the data, and there's not much more to that. If you ever get lost or confused in this video, attached in the description there is a link to another video that I've done. We've actually broken this video down into a much larger video, where I actually go ahead and I show you a tutorial of me creating a class and using a class. All right. The topic of the lesson, the topic of this lesson was encapsulation, and one might ask themselves, what is exactly encapsulation? So encapsulation is the process of hiding data from outside sources. So if you take a look at it here, we have four different keywords that you might have seen before. Sorry, three different keywords that you probably have seen before: public, private, protected, and there's many more actually. There's override, sealed. There's just many out there. So today we're going to be taking a look at specifically public and private, because the rest are in the following lessons about object-oriented programming, specifically inheritance or polymorphism. Okay, so public, basically what public means is that any class is able to view the data. So if I have like a speed in a car, other classes like say bumps and like the bumps or like the road might have access to the speed. They'd be able to see the speed. Private means that no other class except for the class where the variable is held is able to see the contents of the variable. So once again, the speed variable, if I set that speed variable to private, only the car would be able to view it because it's the one that owns that variable. And then we have other things like protected or override and whatnot, and those will go on later. The next part of class is basically your accessor modifiers. And what accessor modifier is it allows you to give indirect access to data from other classes. And why do we need to do this? Well, it's very simple, because of encapsulation. Encapsulation states it's basically what encapsulation is the process in which no direct access is granted to the data of an object. Instead of the object who is responsible for the data that must be interacted with. And in simpler terms, basically, you really don't want classes that shouldn't have access to specific data having access to it. Say when you go to the bank, right? You know that you have your money in your account, but you don't interact with that money specifically, like directly. In order to interact with it, you have to go up to the teller, and the teller will give you your money, right? The bank is responsible for the money, not you. And really, this can be applied to many different cases. Say I have the speed of the car. When I hit a bump, the bump needs to decrease my speed, but it shouldn't be able to do that directly. And so in order to do this, what they have is they have subprograms, public subprograms, so any class can view them, which basically gets the value of the speed, for example, or sets the value of the speed of the private attributes. And so in this way, this might seem counterproductive, instead of having the bump just directly change the speed, I have the bump call another subprogram to change the speed. And the reason we do this is because you really don't want classes that should not have access to specific data having access, because this can create security issues, loopholes, all these weird glitches, and you just want to make sure that only classes that should be able to change specific data are able to change it. You want to limit visibility as much as you can, and that's really one of the core like rules or things you should follow when creating object-oriented programs. Limiting visibility and making sure that only specific classes are able to see specific properties is very important. So in order to do this, what I would do is I create a public subprogram, for the car, right? For the speed of the car, I create a public subprogram, say for the speed, which would then call the speed property or the speed variable, right? And increment it or decrement it or whatever. It's very, very simple. And then last but not least, to our class, we have something called a behavior. Behavior is basically, it's all their subprograms or procedures or methods or functions. All the actions that occur inside the class are the behaviors. An example would be in the car, right? If I hit a bump and the bump makes the car go flying, that could be a behavior where you calculate the trajectory of the car, the flying car. Or say if I have a parking lot and I want to make sure that, and the parking lot only fills 10 people, I want to make sure that only 10 people are inside the parking lot maximum one time. So I want to add another car in, I have to make sure that there isn't already 10 people there. Or just adding the car, removing the car, that's also a form of operation, right? Or an action that's being taken care of in a subprogram in the class, so that's considered a behavior. It's any form of algorithm that goes on within a class in a subprogram is a behavior. All right, that's all there really is to encapsulation. It's not a very difficult concept to grasp. I know this video is going really, really quickly. If you need any more information, there is a link in the description. The tutorial in which I go step by step in creating the classes and using the classes. It's very informative. Probably take a look at that. Other than that, very straightforward topic, not much to it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something.